your mum, who also had a fear of spiders, jumped up on a chair and screamed, "Ah, there's a spider, get it out." And the baby's going, that's how you respond to a spider. Most of the things that we, fears and phobias are learnt responses. So if that person walks away feeling they can't be hypnotized, the irony is they've been hypnotized into believing they can't be hypnotized.
Whoa, now we're getting deep. This week on the Engaging Marketeer, I'm speaking to Turan Mirza from Feelgood Hypnosis. As the name suggests, Turan is a hypnotist that helps people get over fears and things in their lives that they want to change. It could be as simple as biting your nails or a fear of spiders, which I definitely have both of those, or it could be something more debilitating or unusual. So I'm going to be talking to Turan about hypnosis, about how you can become a hypnotist, whether anybody is able to hypnotize, and the link between hypnosis and sales, which is closer than you probably think. So let's get in there and find out more about Feelgood Hypnosis. One thing I would like to know, a lot of people ask hypnotists, can anybody be hypnotized? But I would rather ask, can anybody be a hypnotist? Can anybody have that power?
You can ask both questions.
Well, let's start off, can anybody be a hypnotist?
So anybody become a hypnotist. Hypnosis, and it's a strange thing, my name, Turan Mirza, people think, oh, this is some mystic East special art, or that I'm a seventh son of a seventh son, and they have to be special in some way to do this stuff. Anybody can do it. Now, I say that in the context of anybody could be a ballerina, anybody could be an astronaut, but if you have no inclination to be a ballerina, if you never want to go into space, you'll never be an astronaut, you'll never be a ballerina, etc. So you've got to want it, like any interest, hobby, profession. You've got to have that. Oh, I'm curious about this here. I'd like to do this. But if you have that curiosity, then you can do it.
So what's the training like in order to be able to become a hypnotist?
The training, where do I start? I mean, the training's the training. It's basically explaining how hypnosis works, doing practical demonstrations. There's no, I always say to people, if you're learning to juggle and you can go into the kitchen when nobody's about and you can grab 3 oranges out of the fruit bowl and practice, and if you drop one, just put it back in the fruit bowl, never let on. But with hypnosis, you need people, you need that interaction.
Yeah.
It is all about, again, sadly, you can't, people tell me, oh, can you hypnotize my dog to stop barking and stuff? It is about communications and human interaction. So you need that face-to-face play with other people. Does that answer? Is that enough? Because I mean, hypnosis is a wide range. As much as you're asking, what's the training like? I'll say the phrase. I've been doing this since 2010, so 16 years now, and I'm still going to conventions and learning new subtleties, new techniques, new nuances. So it's like most professions. There's a never-ending journey to learning and picking up. It's not just one thing that you learn quickly and you're done. But within a couple of days, I do like an introduction training, and within a couple of days, you can be out sticking people's feet to the floor. That sort of entertainment to understand how hypnosis works.
Really, you can be doing that after just a couple of days?
That's it.
Wow.
I'm not going to say you're going to be a seasoned hypnotherapist and trauma and other things, but the basics are basic.
And are you allowed to tell us of some of the techniques, or is that kind of...
I can tell you it all, as long as you pay me.
Well, we're paying you with being on a podcast. What can you tell me?
It is. I mean, the bottom line is, again, coming back to can anybody be a hypnotist? Everybody is a hypnotist. When you see in a superstore, Tesco, Sainsbury's, whatever, and you're walking past, and I don't want to be too sexy. A parent, I won't say mother or father, a parent says, shut up, you're always noisy in these shops. That's a suggestion when that child is in a focused state of attention. And that suggestion is more likely to land as a belief and a truth. I'm always noisy in a shop. I'm always misbehaved in a shop. And then you just become misbehaved in the shop because that's the facts of life.
That's what you're
And
told you are, so you become
That's
what you're told.
That's it. So again, don't want to go too deep in it. There's aspects of the training is worth going through the whole training, but getting someone in that focused state of attention and giving a direct suggestion can be as straightforward as that there. And well, an interesting anecdote. I was working with an 11-year-old for fear of roller coasters of all things. The parents based in Northern Ireland, but they would fly over to England to Alton Towers and go to Disney World and Paris and Florida, wherever. And so they loved it, and the child loved the thought of getting on them, but couldn't get on them. So I worked with the young boy. It was a home visit now for safeguarding and for taking notes. I like to record, video record the sessions. I was taking my camera out, and he went, "Oh, I got a YouTube channel," when he saw my camera. And I said, "That's cool, you got a YouTube channel." And then the mum said, "You two can work in the dining room." And I said, "Well, I like the parent to be there." And she says, "Well, we discussed it, and he's happy enough, just you and him." So there's two elements of I like mother to be involved and see what's happening. I like the child to know he has mum in the room. So there's the two aspects of it, but I went in anyway because it was agreed. I didn't want to argue at that point with the child or the mother. And basically, we'd sorted out the fear of roller coasters within 20 minutes.
Really?
And dare I said, almost a bit of an anxiety on my part. I thought, if I go out and she hasn't seen what's happened and the change. So I thought, well, I'll have a bit of a chat with him. I says, tell us about your YouTube channel. And he picked up a tablet that was in the dining room, and he said, "There's my YouTube channel." I said, play one of the videos. Let me see what you do. And he says, I says, "What's wrong?" He said, "Well, I don't like the sound of my own voice." And I went, "Brilliant. We'll work on that as well." So I worked on that, and then we watched the videos, and he was a lot happier about listening to his own voice. And I'm sure you get that a lot with podcasts and whatever else. People don't like the sound of their own voice. So I went out to mum later on. She says, "Well, how's it going?" I says, "Well," and I'll change names for the purpose. I says, "Well, little Johnny, what do you think of roller coasters?" "Yeah, I can't wait to get on my next roller coaster." And he went off to his room, and I said, "We actually worked on something else." And she obviously went, "Oh, what else was wrong with my son?" I didn't think he had any others. "Well, he didn't like the sound of his own voice." And she says, "Well, who does?" And I went, "You've clearly taught him that."
Yeah.
And she put her hand to her mouth and went, I never taught him that." I says, "You don't need to stare him in the eyes and swing a pocket watch and say, you will not like the sound of your own voice." He can be watching cartoons while you and your husband are eating it, or watching, doing something in the tea. And you might say to the husband, "Oh, nobody likes the sound of their own voice." He'll pick up on that. You are a person of authority, like a teacher or a parent. And if you say something with conviction, he'll pick up on that. So I met up with the mum a couple of weeks later, and she says, "Oh, I've been telling all the parents at the school gates picking up the kids that we're hypnotizing our kids," which they are, in a way. So there's also the aspect of people say, "Oh, well, I need to be very careful, if I'm going to be hypnotizing." It's just language. It's just communications. And it's just being aware that, people hear things that you think they're not listening to.
So the positive and negative reinforcement we get hammered home all the time in our youth, that's a form of hypnotizing.
That's it.
So any fear or belief that somebody has ingrained into them can be removed by
because think about it. I like the fear of airplanes, fear of flying, because when you think about it, I think it's just past 100 years, the airplane, and the Wright brothers and whatever. So, we couldn't have inherited this from a great grandfather because planes didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
Fears are learnt behaviours. We're not born with these things. Whether it's fear of spiders, I mean, obviously, especially in the UK, they're not poisonous, okay, unless something escapes from the zoo or something, or somebody has a tarantula for a pet, but in general speaking, domestic spiders are not poisonous, are not dangerous, and yet people have these great fears. It's a very popular fear for hypnosis. So, you've learnt that, and it might be as simple as a baby, your mum, who also had a fear of spiders, jumped up on a chair and screamed, "Ah, there's a spider, get it out." And the baby's going, that's how you respond to a spider. So that is non-verbal hypnosis in itself. Just the action of jumping and screaming is saying, right, this is how I should act when I see a spider. So the good news is, if you learn something, you can unlearn it.
Wow, I'd never looked at it like that. So as I understand it then, from an anthropological point of view, when we are born, we only have two inbuilt fears, which, as I've been told, are loud noises and a falling. And falling could stem from, we used to live in trees, falling out of the tree, and loud noises is fear of danger. As they are the only two inbuilt fears that we are born with, that babies have, can they be overcome with hypnosis as well?
Well, I mean, it's interesting you say that, and again, I don't want to go down into the university and studies and white papers and stuff, but I saw a video one time where they took this like 2-month-old baby and placed it on this glass platform way up high, and the baby didn't know, it just learned to crawl, so it's just crawling along the glass platform, no fear. And then 6 months later, when it was a bit more accustomed to the world, same or similar, more mature babies, and now they were a bit, I might fall here. So there's almost that aspect of, it's a popular thing, fear of falling is one of the two, as well as loud noise. Chances are even that's not learning, ingrained into us. But yes, bottom line is, whether it is or isn't, I don't know, split hairs and arguing those points. The bottom line is, most of the things that we, fears and phobias are learnt responses.
Because the most common one in my industry, and I've spoken to a lot of people on this podcast, is a fear of public speaking.
Yeah.
So it's fears, death, taxes, and public speaking.
That's it.
How would you get somebody over a fear of public speaking?
Same way. I mean, again, I don't want to simplify it too much. It almost degrades the profession, but I say I specialize in one thing, and that's changing people's minds. Whether you're a smoker and you want to be a non-smoker, I'll change your mind. If you want to, if you're nervous about public speaking, you want to be confident about public speaking. So it's, in inverted commas, it's the same process, with a variety of techniques to doing that same process of just, you have a way of thinking, and I need to change the way you think about that. So, and everybody's different. Every smoker's different. Every fear of public speaking's different. For some, I was working with one person who, their fear sort of came from when they were 16 and had done terrible in an exam, and the teacher made him stand up and recite his terrible essay in front of the whole class. And needless to say, people find it funny. And he felt that embarrassment, and now didn't want to feel that embarrassment again. Everything is about feelings. Everything's about feelings. If you feel anxious about getting on an airplane, that's a fear of flying, or phobia of flying. If you feel anxious about approaching a spider, that's a feeling that you get every time you see that spider. If you have anger management issues, you have a feeling that niggles at you and makes you angry. So it's about tapping in and understanding those feelings and changing the way you feel about that situation.
And finding the root cause of that feeling, what it was that brought that on in the first place.
That's it. Now, and the key thing is, the beauty about hypnosis compared to cognitive behavioral therapy or psychotherapy, is hypnosis is about you changing that. I often say that it's like me being a director. I'll claim the analogy is as me being the Steven Spielberg. Maybe you as the client would be Liam Neeson, right? Now I'm the director, and I'll say, Liam, look off camera and say the line, but it's up to you to create that performance. It's up to you. I don't think, not that I've been on set, but I don't think Steven Spielberg should move your upper lip a bit or down a bit, or move your nose to the side or raise one eyebrow. I don't think the director does that level of detail. He just says, right now, say it intensely or say it with a bit of humor, whatever, depending on the line. So I'm the director and giving you guidance, and then you make the change inside your own mind. Again, popular myth is that hypnotists are probing inside your mind. I mean, you laugh, but people with serious faces have said, "Oh, I don't want you probing inside my mind." And this is people with anxieties. They say, "I'd love to get rid of this problem, but I don't want you probing inside my mind." And I don't, disrespect them for saying that, because it's all over the movies.
I was just about to say, that's influenced by film, isn't it?
That's it.
We see things like Charles Xavier on the X-Men doing that, and we think that's what hypnotists are.
That's it. So they've been hypnotized by the movies. I'll get people that, again, you sort of said you're not going to ask, can anybody be hypnotized? I've had people saying, well, I can't be hypnotized. And I says, well, how do you know? Well, I went to this comedy stage show when I was in Ibiza. I had a few drinks on me, and I got up on stage, and I wasn't going under at the same time as everybody else. So the hypnotist said, you can't be hypnotized, go sit down. Now, at the risk of knocking anyone in my fellow profession, he phrased that badly. In a stage show, you want to keep a pace, because you're not just hypnotizing someone and giving that individual an experience, you're giving the audience some entertainment as well. Now, some people will drop within 20 seconds. I've got a video on YouTube where somebody goes into hypnosis in 20 seconds. Some people will take 3 minutes. Some people, can take a bit longer. So in a stage show environment, you want everybody, you don't want to be them all out for the count and you still working for the next 3 minutes on this one individual. So for stage management purposes, if you get 8 people up and one's not going on there, you'll have a nice show for the crowd with these 7, and you say, maybe another time, go you watch, you'll enjoy it more. That's the better way for a stage hypnotist to say it. But if he's in a hurry, so you can't be hypnotized going down, right? The fact is, everybody can be hypnotized. It's just some people take longer, some people take a slightly different technique. So if that person walks away feeling they can't be hypnotized, the irony is they've been hypnotized into believing they can't be hypnotized.
Whoa, now we're getting deep.
Now we're getting into loops. Yeah.
So they're now telling people all the time, "Oh, I can't be hypnotized because I was at this stage show at Butlins and I can't be hypnotized."
That's it. Because for that individual, equally, again, I don't want to preempt questions if you're going to ask this, but is there anybody who can't be hypnotized? Everybody can be hypnotized, but if you don't want to be hypnotized, it will not work that day. So if you get up on the stage saying, "Oh, this sounds like fun," especially if you've got a few drinks, and then you get up on stage and you don't have enough drinks, and again, alcohol plays a factor in inability to be hypnotized. But if you get up on stage and you go, "Oh, I thought there were like 20 people in the audience, there's like 400 in the audience. This is a bit too embarrassing." I don't mind making a fool of myself in front of 20 people, but not in front of 400. So if you get that on you, now anything I'm, as the hypnotist, was trying to do with you, you're not listening to, because you're just going, "Oh, this is going to be embarrassing." And if that's running through your mind, you will stop yourself from enjoying the experience and being hypnotized. So it's not that you can't be hypnotized, but maybe in another day, or if you wanted to stop smoking, you're going 1-to-1, it would work perfectly, but not on a stage, or vice versa even.
Okay. Yeah. So if hypnotism is essentially, I mean, you said you don't want to oversimplify it, but essentially suggesting to people, you're telling them something and they're believing it. And if they're being told by something by somebody else and they believe it, they are, in a sense, hypnotized to believe that.
Yeah.
Where is the line between hypnotism and sales? Because I've seen a lot of people who've done, say, NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and they use that in a sales capacity. So they'll be on a stage and they'll be telling people that, this is your dream, this is what you need to achieve, and in order to achieve this, you need to sign up to my course. They're using language which is conditioning the audience to make them want to buy it, to make them believe that buying it is going to give them their dreams. Where's the fine line between hypnotism and sales in that capacity, or is there one?
Or is there a line at all?
Is there a line at all?
When you really get into studying hypnosis, and like I say, I go to a lot of conventions, I read a lot on things, hypnosis is communications. It's just another word for communications. There is an element of getting someone into that focused state. I would almost say, again, as I've already mentioned, parents. I mean, Richard Bandler, who was one of the founders of NLP, he's famous for saying, and you might be too young for a thing called a VHS, but I've seen tapes of.
I've got VHSs right here, genuinely.
But he's famous. Most of his material is either ripped onto MP4s from VHSs, or I've seen them on, dare I say, on VHSs. But he's famous for saying that he was told in school by a teacher, by the music teacher, you're rubbish at music. You'll never be any good. And because of that, for years, he didn't attempt it. But during the 80s, 90s, he had a series of TV shows, and he wrote the score for his TV shows. And so relays that story that he says, if it wasn't for just overcoming that suggestion, you've got someone who, in inverted commas, you respect their authority, whether it's a teacher, a doctor. I mean, even over, dare I say, I don't know, something, people talk about this controversial, the old COVID thing. But when I was going in getting the jabs, and this might hurt a little bit. And I said, for some people, does it hurt for everyone? She says, no, it doesn't hurt for everyone. So you could say this might be comfortable for you. Because if 40% of the people feel comfortable and 60%, oh, that hurt, right? Then say this might hurt. You're only talking about 60% of the people. And what's to stop you from saying, well, you might find this fact pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
And it's the difference between, going into your boss and saying, or your boss coming to you for a performance review and saying, let's see the areas where you need improvement, and as opposed to the boss coming in and saying, let's highlight where you're going well. It's the same conversation, but we're focusing on the 40% of the things that you do wrong, or the 60% of the things that you do fantastically and should get a pay rise for. And that's you walk out going, 40% of the things I do are rubbish. Yeah, but what about the other 60? If you walk out of the room focusing on the negative, this is all NLP, suggestion, focus of state of attention, on where you're focusing your attention. So, opening that door to another way of thinking can really change how you think.
Because you see it done in sales all the time, and I use it. So if you're speaking to someone, to give the crudest example, if you're speaking to a prospective client, and people in shops will do this as well if they're trying to make a sale for a car or something, rather than say, well, would you like to go ahead with it or not? They would say, would you like to pay in full or pay by the payment option?
Exactly. So there's what we call, and again, I'm going to say in hypnosis, but this is just a presupposition, an assumption that you are going to buy, and are you going to buy it in full, or are you going to buy it in payments?
Yeah, the assumptive close.
That's it. So it becomes closed and makes your mind think differently. And that's the language. That's the real skill. I mean, there's other elements of hypnosis, like I say, worth learning about. But at the crux of it, that's it.
But here's a question: where does that stand ethically? If people are using that within sales to take money from people, is it ethical to be using NLP or hypnosis techniques when you're making a sale to someone?
Again, comes back to the idea that I said earlier. If you don't want to be hypnotized, you won't be hypnotized. Yeah. If you really don't want to buy that car, and I'm sure you as I say this, you're now thinking of examples. So when somebody says, do you want it in red or want it in blue? I don't want it. So if they definitely don't want it, they can resist. The ethics. People were making these statements long before somebody sat with a notebook and said, you know what? If you keep repeating that, you'll get better results. Yes, hypnosis, dare said, is ancient Egyptians, ancient Chinese. I mean, there's nothing new. You'll see new courses coming, new form of hypnosis, this and hypnosis that. Ultimately, it's an ancient thing, and it's since the moment somebody opened their mouth. You know, if I make a statement like, holding it back, this battery is the most powerful battery in the world, and you're glancing at it. I'm not telling you the brand and waving it about, but you're glancing at it's a black bottom and a copper top, and next time I see one in the shops, I'm influencing you. Yeah. Now, ultimately, it comes down to intent. I think ultimately it comes down to intent. If I'm intending to tell you a lie and reinforcing it with a variety of these techniques, but if you come into a car showroom, I didn't drag you kicking and screaming, and you come into a car showroom, I'm going to go, right, he wants a car, right? So I'll make him happy if he buys a car, if he walks out with a car. And I'll obviously make my boss happy if he walks out with a car today. And my boss will be even happier if he buys it from us. Yeah. So is it ethical or is it unethical if he starts using these techniques to help that person realize what he wants and feels good about it? It comes back to the feeling. All these techniques are really to give you a feeling of certainty and a feeling of, happiness with what you're doing.
I think I asked that question because I've seen a lot of salespeople who are selling to somebody who didn't know they were going to be sold to. Timeshare presentations, for example. Timeshare salespeople.
Been there.
Say what you like about them, but they are skilled.
Yeah.
They are really good at selling the dream and the benefit, and they know exactly what to say, when to say it, and when to shut up as well.
And many of them haven't been in hypnosis training. Many of them haven't been on NLP training. So, they're just, somebody's taught them this knack, or even they've just, intuitively picked up this. If I say this in this way, people will be more inclined to close the deal. So again, there's an ethical of, using hypnosis in a way to deceive or that applies to anything, one of the things I'll say on the training, give you insights into the training, hypnosis is a very powerful thing. You can do a lot of things with hypnosis, but you can also do a lot of things. Accountancy is a very powerful thing. A bad accountant can make you jump off a building because you lost all your money. Yeah, and they can siphon money out of you and be devious and all the rest of it. So should we be just as worried about accountancy as we are at hypnosis? But nobody sees it in that way. And again, what I'm doing is an NLP technique of framing it. Child mining. Child mining is a very noble thing. It's letting the parents go to work, earn money. But if they just sit and watch TV and smoke cigarettes around the kids, that's a terrible thing. So child mining is a very powerful thing, and you could do a lot of good for it. You could do a lot of bad for it. Yeah. So you pick any profession. You ask the wrong questions as a podcaster. Oh, you could ruin somebody, or you could elevate them to the highest extent. So podcasters are very important people. Very powerful people. And how often do we say that? If you're trying to do some corporate work, maybe your health training, and you say that probably the most important person is the gatekeeper, the receptionist at the front desk. If you can't convince her to let you talk to the boss, then so receptionists are the most powerful people in the whole business, or is it the CEO? It's all about in that moment what is important, and I could go into a big organization, educate people on health and mindset, and increase profits, make them happier, make them more confident, make them more driven. And because the receptionist didn't like the look of me, she says, "No, you're not talking to Steve. He's too busy. I'm looking at his book here, and he doesn't have anything in his calendar till December." And you just lose that opportunity. And they have now lost money because she thought hypnosis. Yeah.
I need hypnosis for that.
Hey.
Got something stuck in my throat there. It's like a GP's receptionist, the ones that control all the power and stop people getting the appointments, and it seems to be their goal in life is to prevent it.
That, you know, again, I don't want to typecast the in case I get a cough. I don't want to don't want to say anything bad about that. But yeah, I mean, it's everybody has a power to wield, and in the right situations can do the wrong thing anymore. No more than a sales guy that convinces you to buy something, you know, more than you have the credit for. You know.
Okay, let's look at the good stuff then, rather than talk about sales. Let's look at the good stuff that hypnosis can do. Because when we spoke about a month ago, you told me about a particular patient that you helped, particular client that you helped, that had a parachuting incident.
Indeed. The lovely Joan McConnell, just one of my many clients in similar sort of situation. Well, I won't say similar, but not all of the ones. She was a parachutist, so and we're going back now 30 plus years, 1995, believe it or not, and she'd done about 63 successful parachute jumps, and she was flying at 6,500 feet. That's pretty high, and she jumped out of the airplane, and the parachute did open, but then the auxiliary one, the backup one, it deployed as well, and the two tangled together, and she hit the ground at over 100 miles per hour. And for 25 years, she had post-traumatic stress. She couldn't talk about what happened. She couldn't write about what happened. And she couldn't go back to the site where she fell, which is an airfield in Northern Ireland, Bishopscourt, which is now a racing track for go-karts and stuff. And she came to me, and I worked with her. I worked for her for the first session on the Wednesday, and 2 days later, she went back down to Bishopscourt Racing Track for the first time in 25 years. She took her 17-year-old daughter, who wasn't born at the time, if you do the maths, and her daughter heard stories she hadn't heard before about her mum. And that's pretty powerful. So that's 25 years of trauma. And what's nice is that was in 2020. She came to me 25 years after 1995. And in 2022, she launched a book. So she's now written on it. And in this video testimonial, I'll give myself a plug and say I've got a YouTube channel and her video testimonial. Because she contacted me after that event and she says, look, I want to give you a testimonial. And me, being the usual, says, here, you want to give me a Google review? Here's the little link. Check out the Google review and leave me a review. And she said, no, I want to give you a video testimonial. So we arranged to go back down to the site where she fell. So the video's actually down there and you can see her standing. I had this, dare I say it, morbid idea of getting a drone and going up 6,500 feet and sort of dropping it so we could get a bit of footage for this video of the fall. And I thought, no, I can't even mention that. But then she mentioned it. So I thought, all right, that would be a good idea. So my son had just recently bought a drone, and I'd never really used it before. So I'd get down on site, and that's the point for anybody watching or listening in that knows about drones. For aviation, restrictions is a 400 feet limit, so you can't actually go up 6,500 feet.
I was going to say, yeah.
But so I went up and it says, oh, can't go up any higher. And then I recorded some footage. You see some slow speed. I didn't want to accelerate too fast because I wasn't used to using the drone. But even 400 feet, you see a wide perspective getting closer. Yeah. I don't know if I could have cut that video if it was 6,500 feet. But still, you can see what's strange is, and again, we're talking 25 years from the fall, but the footage is of like this little copse of trees. So obviously it was just a grassy knoll back then, but now there's a little mini forest is growing there. But it shows you that's exactly where she fell. And the scary bit, shall we say, is there's the tarmac runway to one side and then this concrete sort of flat area to the other and this little grassy knoll, and if she had landed anywhere else, I don't think that it would have been the same story.
It's amazing she survived at all. That
Well, that's
height and
it.
that speed.
That's it. Like I say, buy the book, My Piece of Sky. There was a little plug there for allowing me to tell that story again. But My Piece of Sky was her book, and I love that title. When she explained, I was at the book launch, and she says, she's lying there looking up, and she thought to herself, she couldn't move her head to the left or the right. She was just really paralyzed at the time for those moments. She didn't remain paralyzed. She was walking and moving about again. It took her about a year to get up and on her feet, but at that moment, she just looked up in the sky and said, "That's my piece of sky." Hence the name of the book, which I thought was beautiful in a way.
That is a nice name for the book.
That's it.
You told me the other month when you went back to the site to film the video testimonial that someone came over
Indeed.
who witnessed
Indeed.
it.
Can't remember what I was telling you the last time. But yes, when we went down, she obviously rang the site owners and said, "Look, somebody's coming down to film. Is there any objections to you filming us filming down there?" He said, "No." He said, "In fact, when you came down with your daughter the other day, I was talking to someone else, and they said they witnessed the fall, and that was an interesting experience in itself." So when we went down, he had brought that gentleman along. He was a farmer. And again, I love the subtleties of this. She had when she was jumping out of an airplane, done these 63 successful parachute jumps, and you're 6,000, you're way up in the sky. You think nobody's watching, nobody can see me. I'm in a world of my own up there in the sky. But he was a farmer, and he says, "I used to watch you guys all the time. You'd see this little dot of an airplane going up, these little pin dots of people jumping out, and the next thing, the parachutes would open. You'd see them just settling down onto the ground over a period of time." He says, "Isn't that fascinating? I used to watch that." He says, "So the day of your accident, I noticed, one dot was not emanating, this parachute was not opening correctly, and I could see there was a problem." And he turned around and he said, "And I heard you scream." Now, she had explained to me beforehand, so when she was explained to him, I'd heard the story, not in session, because again, we don't talk about events in the session. We just talk about how you think about the events. But she'd explained to me, and she explained to the farmer, when she was falling, and she knew, there's nobody's going to come to my rescue now, and there's no way out. I'm falling, and I don't have a parachute for all intents and purposes any longer. So she went into this almost blissful state. But the diving instructor who she later married, he saw her falling. He knew the only way to get to her was by basically, collapsing his parachute completely, so he would fall as fast to her. And even still, at that point, she'd be ahead of him. He probably wouldn't. So there's nothing he could do either. So he screamed, and her husband, was in the room with us, and he says, "Yeah, that was me." So it wasn't her that screamed; it was actually him that went.
Wow.
Because when you think about, if tiger's coming towards you, you sort of scream because you're hoping someone will hear you scream, and pull out a rifle and shoot the tiger before the tiger gets to you. There's a reason why. Again, I don't want to go into too much psychology because I'm talking slightly off the top of my head here, but the theory would be you would scream because you're trying to draw attention to, I'm in danger. But for her, she went, this is time to say goodbye and then make peace with God and all the rest of it. And she almost went just to a different place than that. Ow, what's the use of screaming? Nobody can come to me.
She must be incredibly strong to have recovered.
She's a wonderful lady, and she now does from time to time, talks and stuff on her experiences thanks to that, which she couldn't have for 25 years. And that's what probably everybody says, wow, she fell 6,500 feet and survived. To many, that's the most shocking fact. To me, the bigger fact is the fact that she married someone who witnessed. The two of them were there on that day, and they never really talked about it for 25 years. It was just a known thing. This is going to trigger her in the wrong direction. We're not going to speak about it. We're not going to talk about it. And
So
yet hypnosis changed the way she thought.
did you have to work with her husband, the instructor, at all? Because this must have been harrowing for him to have witnessed.
No, but if you watch the video, he's on the video at the end, and he says, "Wow, this is amazing," and I find this a lot with everyone. If I'm working with, and there's another beautiful testimony, moving slightly away to another example, where I was working with a 9-year-old child, and just the parents talking about the change to their life thanks to the child changing. When I work with one person, everyone around them, feels the benefit. Because we all interact with each other and we all impact each other. If you, I didn't ask if you're married, but if you're pissed off your wife, your husband, whatever your whoever's listening, your kids, they're all impacted. If you have a bad day at the office and you come home to the wife and the kids, they're impacted. So when you change your stress levels and you change your ability to cope with the situations that you're coping with, and you come home and you're happier, the kids, the wives, the husbands, they feel it as well. This is never just one person gaining the benefit.
Well, that leads on to something I was going to ask about, actually, because there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that think I'm smoking, I'd like to stop, or I bite my nails, I'd like to stop, or I've got a fear of spiders, like whatever it is. But they'll be worried that how long is it going to take? Is it going to be embarrassing? Am I going to be able to be hypnotized? How much is it going to cost? Is it really going to work? But what you're saying is then the impact isn't just on them; it's on the people around them.
That's it.
As well.
That's
so
it.
They kind of owe it to their friends and family to take action on it.
Again, I'm almost going to, you're on such a good streak there.
Thanks.
You've got to do it for yourself, right? And this is a hard thing for me to ask people sometimes. I'll get a call from maybe a daughter and saying, "Can you help my mother stop smoking?" And I'm thinking of one client in particular. She's 70 years of age. She smoked all her life, but she's got cancer and they won't operate until she stops smoking. Can you help her stop? And I have the uncomfortable, responsibility of saying, well, does she want to stop? Which sounds a cruel thing to say, but she still has a choice in that moment of continuing to smoking because she enjoys it and not getting the operation. It comes back again to what I said, if you don't want to, and again, other scenarios, people ring up, "Oh, can you help my husband stop smoking? I hate it. Smelly. He comes in from work and his clothes are smelly, the car's smelly. I hate it. Can you help him stop smoking?" Does he want to stop? No, he loves it, but I want him to stop. I can't make him stop because, again, he doesn't want it. He doesn't want that change, so it's not going to happen. Not because he's, dare I say, positively resisting. If I go to hypnotize you and you put your fingers and you go la 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 la, that's positively forcing yourself not to listen, not to get involved, and it's about communication. So if you can't hear me, nothing's going to happen. If you don't, follow my instructions, and accept the suggestions, nothing's going to happen. That's positively stopping it. But he just enjoys the cigarettes. And plenty of people too. I'm not a Bible thumper for any issue, for stop smoking or whatever. If you don't want to stop, hypnosis I often describe as like conflict management. If you're getting the stage where I want to stop smoking, I'm feeling the wheeze, I'm feeling the wheeze in my chest, I'm feeling the pain in the wallet. I know I should stop, but I woke up this morning thinking last night was my last cigarette, and I woke up this morning, I looked down, and there's a lit cigarette in my hand. That's not the first time I've heard a similar type of story, because consciously they've made a decision, but unconsciously, the brain's going, but you always get out of bed and have a cigarette with a coffee in the morning over the kitchen table or whatever. You always have a cigarette after dinner. So consciously, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And you go, they're looking down and going, when it's actually them that reached into their jacket pocket or purse or handbag, whatever. They've pulled out a cigarette or even spent 3 minutes rolling it, and then lighting it and taking a draw. And I went, I wasn't going to do that today.
Well, they just did it without realizing, because it's what they've
That
always
that
done.
4 or 5 minutes of actions or whatever it takes to do that was done without thought. What we would call unconscious behaviors or actions. Most people that bite the nails, you mentioned nail biting earlier, most people biting the nails will have the hand coming away from their mouth and going, I've done it again.
Yeah.
It's not like as the hand approaches their mouth, they're going, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, stop doing it, stop doing it. It's they do it without thinking about it, and then as they pull their hand away, go, done it again. You know?
It's like the most common one I can think of, and I do this all the time, is when you're driving. You forget that you're driving, you forget where you are, and suddenly you're 10 miles further down the motorway, and you've no idea how you got there.
That's called highway hypnosis.
Highway hypnosis.
That's it. Again, the way everybody has their own nuances describing it. I would say you get out of the car, you'll be lifting the bags out of the Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Asda bags, whatever, and you'll go, I don't even remember driving home there. Did I cross the, and it's the same, another variation of that. We were driving along and a child or a dog will step off the pavement and you go, where'd that come from? So you saw it, hopefully, and you caught it on time, but you were so entranced on that meeting with the boss or what you're going to watch on TV tonight, the next episode of Cheers or whatever, or Friends, whatever.
Cheers.
I know.
Whoa, dude.
Caught myself on there. I meant to say Friends, but anyway, even Friends.
Even that,
yeah. Whatever, and or Love Island. We'll try and up it.
You're on safe ground there. Yeah.
There you go. You're so busy thinking about, is he going to kiss her? Is she going to kiss him? Whatever is happening on that you're in another place, but you're not mounting the pavement every 2 seconds. Part of your brain is driving that car, right? It is indicating, it is seeing the red light, it is slowing down. But you don't need to worry about the dog walking along the pavement. But as the dog veers towards, you go, where'd that come from? Because the unconscious mind here, you need to take, I need a bit of conscious support here. This is not habitual. The unconscious mind is really good at habits. So that highway hypnosis, you'll hardly have that if you're driving to somewhere you've never driven before, because you're totally in conscious mind, maybe glancing safely to the sat nav or your Google Maps in a hands-free proper thing, and following the signs and looking for the street names and all the rest of it. But it's in those regular routes that you go back and forwards to, the regular trip to the local shop or the Tesco's or the Morrisons or whatever. Those are the things that are, even that which has multiple turns and multiple traffic lights and multiple zebra crossings, it becomes habitual, and you do it without thinking about it. And the brain goes, well, I can think about Love Island or what I'm going to have for dinner when I get home, or what I'm going to have for buy at Asda when I get there. Because it's always in the fifth aisle, it's the pizzas or whatever, and you can open up more space to think about that. Well, you put on autopilot as the airplanes would do in the movies.
It's like something that I've talked about a lot, and you're probably familiar with this as well. Trainers speak about it, and it's the quadrant of competence. So the first one was unconscious incompetence. So you don't know that you're not. So before you start driving, you don't know that driving's difficult, and then you get to conscious competence. So you are, conscious incompetence. You realize that it is difficult and you're learning to do it before you then get to conscious competence. So you know how to drive, but you've got to concentrate before finally get to what you've just described, which is unconscious competence, and you're driving
exactly.
without even thinking about it. Is it dangerous, though?
It's just part of the human brain. It's just how we operate. If you had to think about tying your shoelaces every time you had to tie your shoelaces, if you had to, you just sipped hopefully nothing alcoholic, but you just sipped a glass of water there or whatever.
Coffee,
or coffee.
Yeah.
you had to move your shoulder joint, you had to move your elbow joint, you
Mm.
had to move your wrist just to sip that coffee. If you had to think about that, you'd be a blubbering mass
Mm.
of trying to think.
And
You
do you
know,
know, I get that. When I log into my computer in the morning, I put the password in without thinking.
that's it.
If I hit the wrong key, as sometimes happens, I then have to go back and think about my password. I can't think what it is.
Exactly.
I
So
have to
so we're doing so much.
walk away, go make a coffee, come back, and then do it without thinking. Because if I try and
Yep,
think of it, don't know it.
that's it.
I couldn't tell you what. Not that I would tell you, but I couldn't tell you what it is right now. It's total muscle memory.
Exactly. Now, and again, that in itself is a lovely phrase from it to a hypnotist because muscles don't have memory, but
Yeah,
it's the unconscious brain
yeah,
that stores all that.
yeah.
But when tennis players continuously building up in inverted commas that muscle memory,
Mm.
what they're building up is the unconscious mind's ability to have that elbow, that wrist, that shoulder in that uh, ideal position to angle that ball, to spin that ball, whatever. So that's muscle memory in itself is an unconscious
And I
brain
suppose
pattern.
it's the difference between somebody who's good at something and somebody who's good at teaching others at something. Because if you've got the unconscious ability, the muscle memory to do something, that doesn't mean you're able to explain to someone else how to do it
Exactly.
because you don't know how you do it.
That's it. That's it.
Mm.
And I'm sure we all have experiences of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why the best football players don't necessarily make very good managers.
I mean that applies in business as well. How many times you've got a great, you know, software engineer and he becomes a software manager and he can't manage people because it's two different
Mm.
sets of skills. One's people management and the other's writing software.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there is a belief in the public sector that you get promoted, or even in the private sector as well, you get
Promote.
promoted to one level above your ability.
That's it. Yeah. And the reason is that one level is because once you get that one level, your performance is now dropped, so you don't get promoted
You get
again.
promoted again, yeah. So everybody is crap at what they do because we've all reached the maximum of our potential, or
Yeah.
above the maximum. We should all go down a level, and then everything will work a lot smoother.
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't go that far because some people go, right, here's a promotion. No, well, pay me more to be an engineer, but I'm not going to be a people manager,
Mm.
because I'm good at engineering or whatever their skill base is. Yeah. So if somebody turns down a promotion, or they might wangle the same amount of money but to stay in the same position,
Yeah.
I would pay them that because they're the smart ones. They realize where the competency lies.
They know what they're good at.
That's it.
Okay. One question I definitely wanted to ask you. You've helped a lot of people with a lot of different problems.
Yeah.
What are I mean, we talked about smoking, obviously, and nail biting. What are the most common things you've helped people with, and what are some of the more unusual ones?
Um, and I hate to class anybody as crazy, silly, unusual.
Mm.
Everything is real in their mind. Somebody comes in with a fear of spiders, it is real.
Mm.
And people will come in saying, I know this is silly, but I know it's not silly, not to them. But all their friends are saying, fear of driving, fear of passing your driving test, or anxiety about, driving, passing the driving exam, or whatever. People say, don't be silly. It's just a car. It's just the road. Everybody's doing it. So don't, you're just being silly. But they're not being silly because that anxiety, that feeling that my heart's going to burst if I make a mistake here in front of an examiner, that is so real to them. So nothing's unusual or silly. I mean, also we talked about, not every day I've had a parachutist, come into me that's survived a fall. But something, for instance, I worked with somebody for fear of tall grass. This was a lady who liked to hike. But if she came to a certain field that had tall grass, she would just circumvent the field when it would be quicker just to diagonally cut across the field. And that just irritated her, So something like that there, a fear of wasps. I don't even know if that goes into the extremes. Spiders is probably the most common thing. There's lots of spiders about. And the key thing is, people always say to me, does that mean I won't know what a spider looks like? Or does that mean I won't know what a wasp looks like? It's getting rid of the fear aspect of it. You won't go over and kiss the spider. You won't go over definitely and kiss the wasps or bees or whatever. that you will get stung if they think you're going to attack them. You'll just go, oh, there's a spider. I think I'll just leave the room. So you might still leave the room, or you might ask that can go pick that up. It doesn't mean you have that. You become the one that lifts the spider and puts it out the door or whatever. It just means that you don't have that, and some of the expressions and some of the responses people have had for something like spiders or fear flying. I've had people, I think I might have mentioned this before to you, people that can't, sitting in their living room, can't watch an airplane on the television.
Yeah.
Their fear flying's that bad. So it's not like they've just booked a holiday and they're panicking about the trip in 2 months' time. It's not like they're standing in the departure lounge and looking at the airplane. It's not like they've just walked up the stairs and they're on the plane and now they're panicking that they're going to get locked into this metal container. It's going to fly up in the sky. They're sitting in their living room with no plans to travel anywhere, but they have a feeling that rushes up in them when they see an airplane on the screen and they leave the room. So, to answer the question,
I think he does. Yeah. The fear of tall grass is presumably it's what might be in the tall grass was the problem.
Again, this is the beauty of it. People come to me and say, I have a fear of X, Y, or Z. And I've even got some demos on the YouTube channel. A lot of the YouTube channel, because I learned just doing street hypnosis and it's some fun street hypnosis stuff, but there is a playlist called Change Work. I don't like the word therapy. I like the word hypnotic change work because therapy has a negative connotation. If you Google the word therapy, it says to overcome a disorder. And I don't think people have a disorder. I don't think they're broke. They just have a way of thinking, and we need to change that way of thinking. And now I've lost my train of thought. Yeah, there's several videos up there of content free, what I call content free. So somebody's come up to me and says, right, I have a problem. I have a feeling around something, and I want to change that feeling. And I can get them to change the way they feel about it. And I have no idea whether it's a fear of clowns, whether it's a fear of tall grass, whether it's a fear of spiders. Because all I'm doing is working with the feeling and getting them to change the way they feel. So, and I've had clients come in where I said, look, I don't really want to talk about this. Something happened in the past and I want to change the way I feel about it. Can you help me without me telling you what it was? And I can. Because hypnosis is all about, they know what's happened consciously, and like the smoker consciously knows they're smoking, but unconsciously, or consciously know they're smoking, and unconsciously it's saying, well, you're a smoker, so I'll keep you smoking. But they consciously want to stop. So there's an unconscious mind is keeping them in the old pattern, whether it's the conscious mind's keeping them, the conscious mind says, I want to get over that instant. I was mugged, they took my wallet, and I want to forget that ever happened. But every morning I wake up and every time I see that wallet, I just, right? I don't need to know that they were mugged 2 or 3 years ago. I just need to know they have a feeling about a memory and I can help them change that feeling because it's them fixing it and they know what happened. I've had people coming into me who said, I've been in therapy for 2 years. And one session with me has impacted them more than the 2 years of therapy. Wow. Now, I'll give credit where credit may be due. Maybe, the 2 years of therapy helped them to get to the point where my one session did the work.
So they loosened the bottle top and you just opened it.
I'm not giving them too much credit, but it could be the case.
Yeah.
Could be the case.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I'll often say, and this is give credit where I can. A lovely gentleman, Scottish gentleman, Bob Burns, is a hypnotherapist, and he has this lovely phrase saying, "You don't have a conscious problem." We go back to something like spiders. Consciously, you know that even though you've only got 2 legs and it's got 8, you could run away from it. They know that. There's very few people that come to me with fear of spiders don't realize they're bigger than the spider. And I'm not advocating any cruelty to animals, but consciously they know they could stand on it and kill it if they wanted to, before it could ever do any harm to them. We're not in Brazil where they're poisonous. We're not in Australia where they're dangerous. We're in the UK. So even if it did touch them, it would tickle more than anything. So they know all these things consciously. So consciously, that's not the problem. But they get this feeling from somewhere inside them, whether it's deep in their belly, just in the back of their head, wherever it is, could be in their big toe, I don't know. Wherever they're getting this feeling that says, I don't want to be around this, get me out of here. This is a danger. I've learned this. Coming back to what we were talking about earlier, it's a learned behavior. So changing that learning can change the way they think.
That's a beautiful phrase. Changing the learning can change the way they think. That's a great way to end it there. Turan, if somebody's listening to this thinking, I love this, I want to contact you, I need help, can you cure me of what issue I've got? What's the best way for them to speak to you?
Well, I'll jump in there with I don't cure anything. They cure themselves. They fix themselves.
They cure you show them the way.
I don't delve out the cures. Yeah. But www.feel-good.today. That's my website. And our phone numbers. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, X. Nearly said Twitter there, showing my age again. And more. Just if you search for Feelgood Hypnosis is the company name, and my Google ranking is pretty good, you'll see the websites and all the other places where you can find me, get in touch with me, and love talking about this stuff, as I'm sure you've twigged by now. Yeah. So if somebody wants just to ask a question about the possibility of help with something, I'd be glad to help them change their own lives.
Fantastic. And I will put the links to the website and to the social media and the contact details below the podcast. So if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the description. If you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, or something else, it's in the show notes below the podcast. So scroll down and you can reach out to Turan that way. Turan, thank you very much for being on the podcast. It's been absolutely fascinating.